Oh, you have a car here? What? I want to Chabad house. I have my car in Chabad house. I'll drive back with Danny. Yeah. And from he's gonna take her to Chabad house, then I'll come back with him. No, I have a car in Chabad house. Hi, Eugenia. I'm leaving and making you host, okay?
Sure, thank you so much.
What's happening in town?
Oh, cool. Very nice. Enjoy. Thank you so much.
Down below, down below. Okay, got it.
Yes. There we go.
So far, so good, Eugenia.
All right. I guess I'm managing. Thank God. Okay. So, dear ladies, we will start. Thank you so much for joining. And Loredana, I think you might have missed, but Rochel is in a golf tournament, which is a great success, I'm happy to say. So I'll be doing the class tonight again. So we've talked in the previous classes a lot about the months of Elul and the concept that the king is in the field and what an auspicious time it is right now when the king Hashem is now in the field, relaxed and in an excellent mood and very happy to see all his subjects and listen to them, ready to establish the relationship. But as we know, the time moves very quickly. And the king is going towards the palace. So before we know it, it will be Rosh Hashanah. And we refer to Rosh Hashanah as the head of the year. We refer to it as the birthday of the world, when the humanity was created. But our sages also refer to it as the coronation night. So who it is really that is getting coronated and by whom? What is going on over here? I allow myself to digress a little bit from our topic. It's not so much of a digression as we know everything that we cover is related to the topic, to what is going on in our days. And as we know today, we get a very sad news that the Queen has passed away. For me personally, it was very sad because I feel like she's been a monarch for 70 years and she represented a certain epoch, a certain era and a certain class. And now, of course, her son, Prince Charles, is going to ascend to the throne. And I presume that after a certain time, there will be some proper coronation. But this is the human coronation. So back to our topic. Who is it that's getting coronated on Rosh Hashanah? And the question is also by whom? So Rabbi Vivi Jacobson describes a very interesting speech given by Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik from the famous Soloveitchik family, where he was reminiscing about his childhood experience. When Rabbi Soloveitchik was a child in a little shtetl of Lubavitch, in the border of Russia and Belarus, which, by the way, my husband's family is coming from. So that place has connection to our family as well. That was he recalled when he was a little child in the Cheder on the Erev of Rosh Hashanah. And his teacher got extremely excited. He was in what we call in a state. And they couldn't understand. They're little children. They don't know what the excitement was all about. So the teacher asked the students, turned to the students and asked them, children, do you know what's going to happen tonight? And he said, it's a coronation night. So he asked the children, who do you think we are coronating? And of course, Rabbi Soloveitchik, as a small child, was a child prodigy. So he knew very well what the question and what the answer was, but he decided to play a smart aleck. So he said, it's Tsar Nicholas. And that was, of course, in the 1900s, before the Russian Revolution. So that horrible Tsar was still in power. But the teacher didn't take the joke kindly, and he said, him, what do we need to coronate him for? He already was coronated. And plus, on top of it, he is not the real king. He is not the real sovereign. No, children, he said, tonight we will be coronating Hashem himself. And do you know, children, he asked, who is going to do the coronation? And this time they let the teachers speak. And he said, the ones who will be coronating the king will be the Yankel the tailor, Beryl the shoemaker, Zalman the water carrier, Yossel the painter, and David the butcher. In other words, it's the regular people, who will be coronating the king. And that simple exchange, according to Rabbi Soloveitchik, left a huge impact on him. Later on, he recalled that of all the explanations about what Rosh Hashanah is really all about, hello, Darit, the one that said that regular, ordinary people will be coronating the king, explained to him the essence of what Rosh Hashanah is all about in the best possible way. He said, every year when I recite the magnificent words of Rosh Hashanah prayers, rule over the whole world in all your glory, he said, I recall that little shtetl and that poor teacher's word. And he felt also that the whole entire essence of Judaism was expressed in these words, because really after that, there was no need to explain to people why to remain Jewish, why to marry Jewish, why to bring up our children Jewish, because it was very simple. Who wants to miss coronating the king? Who wants to miss this opportunity? Whatever coronation is going to take place in London, in the due time, nobody's asking, well, ordinary people could watch, but nobody's asking them to officiate and to coronate the king. The question is, however, why does Hashem want us to coronate him? After all, Hashem created all the people. Hashem is present everywhere. Hashem is eternal. Hashem is omnipotent. What difference does it make for him that the ordinary, limited people, finite people that he himself created will be coronating him as the king? And of course, this is really the essence of what Judaism is really all about. This is one of the greatest ideas of Judaism, that the perfect, endless God desires to be the king, not for his own power, because he could do with the people whatever he wants. He could, treat people, for him, the people are like little ants, and he could dispense with them as much as we could do with the ants. And who wants to be king over the ant colony, right? But he wanted to be the king through the establishing the relationship with the people, and from people freely choosing to construct a bond with Hashem and coronate him as a king. So an infinite, omnipotent Hashem suspends his infinity and conceals his omnipotence, in order to allow space for the independent, self-oriented human being who is then capable of choosing him as the king. And this was the meaning of Rosh Hashanah, and that is precisely why on this particular day, the first humans were created. So it's the day when the small, vulnerable, and lowly human beings invite Hashem, choose Hashem to be a king, invite him to be the king, and coronate them as the king. So Hashem really wants the relationship. He doesn't want to be the dictator. And while Hashem appreciates that everyone, the uncle and the Moshe and all of us really coronate him as the king, what Hashem really appreciates the most is the unity between people. Just like as we stood on Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, there were just one people. The same on Rosh Hashanah, at the time of coronation, our sages were saying that one of the most sure way to ensure that Hashem is going to smile and grant us a good year is when the people are united, when they come together as the community, as the united people all together. The question is how to achieve this harmony, how to achieve the unity. And very unexpected and surprising answer to that comes in this week's Parsha, the Parsha Ki Tetzaveh. Interestingly enough, it has lots of commandments in this Parsha, but one of the mitzvahs in the Parsha are quite unexpected. It says the following: do not see your kinsman's donkey or his ox fallen on the road and ignore it. Help him lift it up. So on the face of it, this is just one tiny detail in the Parsha which has lots of commandments. And it's easily even to be missed. But its real significance is telling us what is the society that will be united, the society that will be civilized, when everybody will feel connected to everybody else, would be built. It's a place where people are good neighbors and are willing to help even the stranger in distress. Its citizens care about the welfare of others. When they see someone in need of help, they don't just walk by. In one of his beautiful essays, Rabbi Sachs of blessed memory has a very, very beautiful explanation to that mitzvah. He recalls, first of all, his own drive to the Catskills mountain, and the driver shared with him very interesting story. The driver said one day he was driving on the road and there was someone in distress, someone who needed the tire to be replaced. And the person was wearing kippah, so the driver was himself a Jewish gentleman. He stopped by. He helped the person to change the tire, and to his surprise, as soon as they changed the tire, the gentleman pulled off his kippah and put it in his pocket. And seeing the bewildered look of the driver, he told him, you know what, I'm not Jewish at all, but I was taught since I was a child that if I look Jewish, another Jew will for sure help and help me out. And sure enough, it worked. He didn't let me down. So that's quite a telling story that actually tells us, you know, how much Jewish people since the times of the Torah learned that we're people who are really helping each other no matter where we are. So I would like to share with you some very interesting insights of that portion about the commandments about not ignoring the fallen animal from that wonderful essay by brilliant Rabbi Sachs. The sages debated the precise logic of that command. Some held that it was motivated by concern for the welfare of the animal involved, the ox or the donkey, and that accordingly, the prevention of suffering of animals is the biblical command. Fair enough. Others, notably Maimonides, held that it had to do with the welfare of the animal's owner, who might be so distressed that he came to stay with the animal at risk to his own safety. The key word here being on the road. So the idea is that if the animal is fallen right on the road, and the roads in the olden times were dangerous, and the owner might risk his life or her life and stay right by the animal. And so the commandments, Maimonides believed that the commandment was to help the owner so he wouldn't be staying in a place of danger. Equally, the sages discussed the precise relationship between this command and a similar but different one, however, in the Exodus. If you see your enemy's donkey fallen under its load, do not pass by, help him load it. They said that all other things being equal, if there is a choice between helping an enemy and helping a friend, helping an enemy takes precedence, since it may overcome the inclination that it may help end the animosity and turn the enemy into a friend. This, the ethic of help your enemy, is the principle that works, unlike the ethic of love your enemy, which has never worked and had led to some truly tragic histories of hate. In general, as Maimonides states, one should do for someone you find in distress what you would do for yourself in a similar situation. Better still, one should put aside all consideration of honor and go beyond the limit of law. Even a prince, he says, should help the lawless commoner, even if the circumstances do not accord with the dignity of his office or his personal standing. All of this is part of this, what sociologists nowadays call social capital, something we really, really need in our society. The wealth that has nothing to do with money and everything to do with the level of trust within a society. The knowledge that you are surrounded by people who have your welfare at heart, who will return to you lost property, who will raise the alarm if someone is breaking into your house or car, who will keep an eye on the safety of your children, and who generally contribute to a good neighborhood itself, an essential component of a good society. The man who has done more than anyone else to chart the fate of social capital in modern times is Harvard sociologist Robert Putnam. In a famous article, Bowling Alone, and the subsequent book of the same title, he drew attention to the sharp loss of social capital in modern times. It was symbolized by the fact that more people than ever were going 10-pin bowling, but fewer than ever joining bowling teams. Hence the bowling alone term, which seemed to epitomize the individualism of contemporary society and its corollary, loneliness. 10 years later, in an equally fascinating study, American Grace, he argued that in fact social capital was alive and well in the United States, but in a special location, namely religious communities, places of worship that still bring people together in shared belonging and mutual responsibility. His extensive research carried not through the United States between 2004 and 2006, showing that frequent church and synagogue goers are more likely to give money to charity, regardless of what the charity, whether charity was religious or secular. They are also more likely to do voluntary work for the charity, give money to a homeless person, give excess change back to a shop assistant, donate blood, help a neighbor with housework, spend time with someone who is feeling depressed. Allow another driver cut in front of them, offer a seat to a stranger, or help someone find a job. Religious Americans are measurably more likely than their secular counterparts to give of their time and money to others, not only within, but also beyond their own communities. Regular attendance at a house of worship turns out to be the best predictor of altruism and empathy, better than education, age, income, gender, or race. Religion creates community. Community creates altruism, and altruism turns out away from self and towards the common good. Putnam goes so far as to speculate that an atheist, that's very interesting, the atheist who went regularly to church, perhaps because of a spouse, would be more likely to volunteer in a soup kitchen than a believer who prays alone. There is something about the tenor of relationships within the religious community that makes it an ongoing tutorial in citizenship and good neighborliness. At the same time, one has to make sure that religiosity does not get in the way. One of the cruelest of all social science experiments was the Good Samaritan test, organized in the early 1970s by two Princeton social psychologists, John Berkeley and Daniel Batson. The well-known parable tells the story of how a priest and a Levite failed to stop and help a traveler by the roadside who had been attacked and robbed, while a Samaritan did so. Waiting to get to the reality behind the story, the psychologist recruited students from the Princeton Theological Seminary and told them that they were to prepare a talk about being a minister. Half were given to more instructions than that. The other half were told to construct a talk around the Good Samaritan story. They were told to go and deliver the talk in a nearby facility where an audience was waiting. Some were told that they were late. Others, that if they left right now, they would be in time. And the third group, that there was no need to hurry. Unbeknownst to the students, the researchers had positioned directly on the student's route an actor playing the part of a victim, slumped in a doorway, moaning and coughing, replicating the situation in the Good Samaritan parable. You can probably guess the rest. Preparing a talk on the Good Samaritan had no influence whatsoever, whether the student actually stopped to help the victim. What made the difference was whether the student had been told he was late or that there was no hurry. On several occasions, a student about to deliver a talk on the Good Samaritan literally stepped over the victim as he hurried on his way. The point is not that some fail to practice what they preach. The researchers themselves simply concluded that the parable should not be taken to suggest that Samaritans are better human beings than priests or Levites, but rather it all depends on time and conflicting duties. The rushed seminary students may well have wanted to stop and help, but were reluctant to keep a whole crowd waiting. They may have left, that their duty was to the many who were waiting rather than to the one who was in distress. The Princeton experiment does, however, help us understand the precise phrasing of the command of this week's Parsha. Do not see and ignore. Especially it is telling us to slow down when you see someone in need. Whatever the time pressure, don't walk by. Think of a moment when you needed help and a friend or stranger came to your assistance. Can you remember such occasions? Of course, they linger in the mind forever, and whenever you think of them, you feel a warm glow, as if to say, the world is not such a bad place after all. That's the life-changing idea. Never be in too much of a rush to stop and come to the aid of someone in need of help. Rarely, if ever, will you better invest your time. It may take a moment, but its effect may last a lifetime. Or as William Wordsworth put it, the best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. And of course, when people could trust each other, when the people could rely on each other, it creates a very coherent society. It creates that type of unity that Hashem is craving for, that he's looking from us. And that's particularly relevant now when we're examining our deeds, when we're thinking and preparing to coronate Hashem as a king, preparing for this very special night when the Jewish people will be standing side by side and announcing that they again choose Hashem to be the king. Any comments? Anyone wants to add anything?
I think it's beautiful lessons and reminders, because we all know this deep inside. Slow down, have a moment to reflect. That brings it more to the surface than if we just carry on in a rush. We know it, but it's kind of deeper down. And when we coronate, that sounds so elegant and full of pomp. And also attached, there's always the two sides, is that's when we're taking on the yoke. We're saying that Hashem is the sovereign, the nothing but Hashem. So it's the contrast, it's the other side of the same thing. So coronating and also taking on the yoke, that we understand Hashem is one.
That's a very, very beautiful comment. I also find that it's very touching, the fact that Hashem doesn't want to be the tyrant. Hashem doesn't want to be the despot, right? Hashem wants, the idea is the relationship, like you said, that it's the people who really Hashem makes a step towards us and people make a step towards Hashem. And the idea, yes, Hashem is the king, yes, Hashem is the sovereign, but the idea that the focus is really on the building of a relationship. And that very much also echoes with this week's portion, the idea that we were talking about, when that unity works between people, and between people, a person, and then between united people and Hashem. And it's absolutely fascinating that the Torah gives us on the surface a very simple recipes of how to achieve that unity. So we see this relationship between person, between a person as an individual and Hashem, but also the people as the community and Hashem. So it becomes a different focus, all about relationship, and seems to be a mundane, a simple thing, like a donkey fallen, an ox fallen. Yes, we know we should take care of the animals, that is without a shadow of a doubt, and help other people, but it grows into something so much more significant, to letting other people know that we care and that we should not rush and ignore, and that helps to build the trust, that helps to build the relationship in the people in the community, and builds a well-oiled society. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to turn off